Tonight on Reporting Scotland, a huge fire devastates the Glasgow fruit market. The supply of fresh fruit and vegetables to many Scottish businesses is disrupted.
All of a sudden, it just a complete fireball just spreads like wildfire.
We'll be live at the scene. Also in the programme, 4 times as many primary school-aged children are taking antidepressants as they were 7 years ago. To frack or not to frack is a controversial question, but a Scots scientist says fracking may not even work here.
It's Griffiths and it's five! It's five!
Celtic are all but assured of a place in the Champions League group stages after beating Astana 5-0.
When your ship come by.
And a very cellular revival, a concert in Edinburgh to celebrate the incredible string band. Good evening. Scotland's biggest market has been extensively damaged by fire, with many traders now counting the cost to their businesses. 4 times as many primary school-aged children are taking antidepressants as 7 years ago, according to figures obtained by the BBC. The Scottish Government says it's because of the increased demand for child and adolescent mental health services. Here's our health and social care correspondent, Shelley Joffrey.
I had suffered with depression for a long time, and it was mainly my mum and dad that wanted to get help for me because it was becoming a problem.
Julie was 14 when her GP prescribed the antidepressant sertraline, but she believes it made her situation worse.
The person I was when I was on that drug was somebody completely unrecognisable to myself and to my family. I was just a horrible, horrible person when I was on that medication. I'm not like that at all, never have been since or before it.
Many young people say they've been helped by antidepressants, but only one drug, fluoxetine, has actually been shown in clinical trials to effectively treat depression in that age group. The number of people under 18 prescribed antidepressants in Scotland has doubled in 7 years, from more than 2,700 to over 5,500 in the last year. For primary school-aged children, the rise has been sharper, from just 57 in 2010 to 252 in the last year. That's a 4-fold increase. Almost half were prescribed the antidepressant fluoxetine.
We all know that withdrawal effects for antidepressants are very nasty adverse reaction and very problematic to manage adverse symptoms. So, it's not necessarily a good thing, but there's definitely an unmet need, especially in areas where psychotherapy is not available.
The Scottish Government's target is for children to access specialist help within 18 weeks of referral, but hundreds of young people are waiting longer.
Yes, it's been true that in the past boards haven't met those targets, but now we're seeing rapid progress. 10 out of 14 boards are meeting the 18-week target. In half the boards, the waiting time is down to 9 weeks.
There are concerns that while children wait for talking therapy, medication is used as a sticking plaster, and that not enough information is given to young people about potential side effects.
I wasn't made aware about the risks, but they could have even taken one of my parents aside to make them aware of the things that could happen, but nobody told us anything.
The Royal College of Psychiatrists says untreated mental illness can cause extreme suffering and stop children from enjoying their childhood.
And Shelley joins me now. So, to be clear, is this rise in antidepressant prescriptions because talking therapy is proving so hard to access?
Well, medication is only meant to be prescribed for children alongside talking therapy, but the truth is that demand for psychological services just far outstrips supply. So you heard in the report there that only 10 out of 14 health boards actually met the government's 18-week referral to treatment target. So at the start of this year, the first quarter of this year, that means more than 700 children had to wait longer than 18 weeks to be seen. And actually, even more than that, had their referrals to child and adolescent mental health services rejected.
Does that mean that some children then are on medication unnecessarily?
Well, that's a harder question to answer. Everyone I've spoken to about this tells me that mental health services are overstretched. I mean, even the 9-week improved wait that the Health Minister spoke about there is a pretty long time to wait if you're in crisis. So doctors have got to be able to offer something to children in mental distress. And there are clear prescribing guidelines so that doctors know what to prescribe, when to prescribe them, so that that should give reassurance to young people and their parents about they're being closely monitored and it's all being done safely.
OK, thanks very much, Shelley. Shelley Joffrey. Child and baby units at Scottish health boards have repeatedly been forced to close to new admissions because of staff shortages. The Royal College of Paediatrics and Child Health carried out a census about services in the year to October 2015. It found that a quarter of paediatric inpatient units and 41% of neonatal units had to close to new admissions due to shortages of doctors or nurses. The Scottish Government say NHS staff levels have increased to a record high. The Liberal Democrats have been defending their deputy leader after the SNP said her election expenses raised questions. Jo Swinson, who represents East Dunbartonshire, said in an official return that thousands of pounds was being disregarded and wasn't to be counted in her overall total. Our political correspondent, Andrew Kerr, has more.
It was a tough fight. Jo Swinson took back the East Dunbartonshire seat from the SNP in June. She'd last held it in 2015. A victory at the time, but now she's under attack again for her election expenses. They reveal she came under the legal limit by £210, but other spending was disregarded. In total, she didn't include around £2,700, which went on undelivered material. And about £4,000 was on national spending, not her local campaign. The SNP say this raises questions.
Well, this is quite extraordinary, isn't it? 93,000 pieces of election literature just vanishes overnight. This isn't the magic circle, this is an electoral contest, and the Liberal Democrats have got some fundamental and significant explaining to do to try and describe what actually happened to these leaflets. And I think that the voters of East Dunbartonshire have got serious questions to ask about this.
Police Scotland say no complaint has been made. Jo Swinson is on holiday, so couldn't speak today, but the Lib Dems issued a statement saying all expenditure in this election was apportioned correctly and clearly identified in our election return. It's understandable that the SNP are smarting from a disappointing result, but they should accept that they were beaten in a fair fight. This story raises another issue, that of access to this type of information. We had to pay almost £10 to the local council to get Ms Swinson's election expenses. In the past, the Electoral Commission has said that candidate spending returns should be published online. Perhaps that's an issue that may be raised again. Andrew Kerr, reporting Scotland, Mogai.
Science has provided a new twist in the debate over fracking. The ordeal of rape victims in Orkney and Shetland having to travel to the Scottish mainland for forensic examinations is to end. At the moment, no doctors in the Northern Isles provide the service, but now the Scottish Government starting a pilot training programme. John Johnson reports.
Karen McKelvey helps rape victims in Shetland. With no doctors trained in the islands to carry out forensic examinations, she says it's prolonging the pain for survivors.
Well, the reality is a woman who's been a victim of rape in Shetland would have to travel on ferry or boat and not be advised to wash and have to take her own clothes away as evidence for that examination.
Across Scotland, rape victims can have different experiences in the justice system. One reason is the lack of female doctors to carry out testing. Now the government wants to end the postcode lottery.
What the victim should experience and what they should
Visiting Lerwick, the Justice Secretary launched a programme to train more doctors across Scotland to carry out forensic examinations.
I'm determined to make sure that we support women effectively if they experience sexual violence, and a key part of that is making sure that we have sufficient doctors to carry out forensic medical examinations. And that's why we're providing funding to allow an extra 50 doctors to be trained in this type of procedure to support women who require to undergo these examinations.
It's here at the maternity ward at the Gilbertbean Hospital in Lerwick where the examinations will take place.
So we have 3 doctors who work within sexual and reproductive health who will be providing an on-call service supported by our sexual health nurses in order to ensure that we are providing for the health needs first and foremost of any victims, but also that we are able to undertake a forensic examination where that's indicated.
It's hoped the new service will be up and running before Christmas. For Karen McKelvey and the victims she supports, it can't happen soon enough. John Johnston, reporting Scotland, Shetland.
2 Coast Guard helicopter crews were involved in the rescue of a fisherman who took ill 200 miles off Stornoway on Lewis. A bank robber who was caught when he blew some of the money on a luxury holiday has been jailed for more than 10 years. The Celtic manager Brendan Rodgers says his side still have work to do if they're to progress to the group stage of the Champions League. They started out playing in an Edinburgh pub and went on to become one of the most influential bands in the world.